Go ahead and write number 15 down in your notes. Today we're talking about percents and proportions. Okay? You're going to get used to seeing this proportion, A over B equal P over 100, which is what we wrote right there. Okay? It says where A equals to the part, B is the total, and P equals the percent. Okay? A is the part, B is the total, P is the percent. There's only three things. In the proportion, 100 is always 100. Okay? Doesn't change. It's just always 100. And what you have is this. You have two basic, this right here is just a normal fraction like 3 over 4. Okay? The P over 100 is what we do to change a percent to a fraction. Okay? So you've seen the two things before. Okay, you've seen the two things before. We've used them in different aspects of, it was chapter 6 and chapter 8. Okay, we used it in different aspects of those chapters. All right, now you're seeing it as a group for probably the first time. Okay, but it's very similar to this. The other day in 9.1 we talked about if I want to take 3/5 and make it a percent. Remember we talked about in section 1, what did we talk about? How do I change 3/5 to a percent from chapter 1, from section 1 of chapter 9? How do I do that? If you need to look back at your notes, do that because I'm expecting a response. How do I change 3/5 to a percent? Tayshawn. Is it what? Right, we're making equivalent fractions. Yeah, we make equivalent fractions. To make an equivalent fraction, we said, okay, we're going to put 100 on the bottom because percents are based out of 100. Okay, and then I'm going to say, okay, what I do to 5 to make it 100, I multiply it by 20, okay, and I do the same thing to the top. Okay, that would be 60, so it would be 60%. Okay, what we're doing today is the same thing. In other words, this part right here is that part right there in your proportion. Okay, this way always works. Remember I told you the other day, what happens if we run into a fraction like 1/6? Well, we can't say 6 times a certain number equals 100, can we? No, we don't have a whole number that you can multiply 6 by to get 100. What if we had 8? Does 8 go into 100 evenly? No. Okay, so we're very limited on what we can change if we only know the equivalent ratio method. Okay, which is what we talked about in section 1 of chapter 9. Okay, we called it equivalent ratios, equivalent fractions. Okay, well, what we're going to talk about today is this. We're going to get a word sentence. Okay, you wrote down number 15. Let me write it down. Number 15 says, what percent of 30 is 3? So, here's what they've done. They've made this a little bit more complicated because they put it in words. But here's all they've done. Okay? They just want to know what is 3 over 30 as a percent. That's all they want to know. They want to know what is 3 out of 30 as a percent. That's what this problem is. Now, put your hands down. We're going to solve that. We're going to solve it using the proportion because here's our deal. Does 30 go into 100 evenly? No. So you're thinking, okay, what do I do? Well, I told you the other day there is a proportion that you can use that will change every single number. You'll be able to change it to a percent by using this proportion. Okay? They're just going to put it in a little different form than what you're used to seeing. Okay, instead of giving you the fraction 3 over 30 and saying, hey, I want that changed to a percent, they put it in a little word sentence, is all they've done. Okay, now let's talk about the word sentence. Obviously, what percent means P? This is B. This is A. Okay, if you will find the of in every single sentence, okay, the P and the B will be on one side or the other every single time. Okay? Every single time the P and the B will be on one side or the other of the of. Okay? All right. Now, let's look at the problem. I don't have my P, so if I look at my proportion, A over B is equal to P over 100. We said the B is 30, the A is 3, and the P is missing. So now I just simply cross multiply, like we did proportions in Chapter 8. I cross multiply just like we did on the quiz yesterday. I cross multiply and solve the proportion. Excuse me. So that gives me 30 times P is equal to 3 times 100. So that gives me 30P equal 300. So how do I solve that, Jesse?
30P over 30 equals 300 divided by 30.
Yes. We take and we divide both sides by 30. 30 on the left side cancels out because 30 goes into 30 one time. 1 times P is just P. So that's why we have a P left. Now we divide. The zeros cancel on our 30 and our 300. And that leaves us with 30 over 3, which is 3 into 30, which is 10%. And that is your answer. Do what? Because I basically, when you have 300 over 30, I'm just dividing by 10 over 10. 10 goes into that 30 times. 10 goes into that 3 times. Instead of doing that, I can just mark out the zeros. It only works on zeros. Now, if you have it like 33 over, 23, you can't mark out the 3s. It only works on the zeros. Yeah. Like if you had 2,000 over 100, you could mark out 2 zeros on each number. Okay? Flipping. All right. Let's look at the next sentence. Next sentence, number 19, says, what number is 14% of 350? What number is 14% of 350? The first step you do is circle the of. In circling the of, that lets me know that the P and the B are on the left and the right of the of. Okay? The P and the B are on the right and left side of the of. All right, now, that means this has to be the A. Because there's only 3 parts, A, P, and B. Okay? A, P, and B. Now, my proportion, once again, I'm writing it each time because each time I write it, it helps me remember it and memorize it. My proportion, once again, then, is A over 350 equals 14 over 100. Okay, now we cross multiply. 100 times A is equal to 350 times 14. Okay, so that's 100A is equal to, what is 350 times 14? 4,900. Let's see, that's going to be 3,500 plus 14, yeah, 4,900. Okay, now what do I do to solve, Brandon? Huh? What's next, Tayshawn? Yes, I divide 100 into both sides. That cancels. A is equal to, those two zeros cancel, those two zeros cancel. Leave me with 49. Now, where most people will make a mistake is they just start slapping on percent signs. You know, every number is going to have a percent sign. Well, you can't do that because we already have the percent sign in the original problem right there. The only number that gets a percent is when you're looking for the percent, P, when it says what percent. Okay, that's the only time you put a percent sign with your answers, when it's asking for what percent. Okay? All right, now, I want you to try number 21 on your own. 21 says, what percent of 600 is 180? Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that one. So, here's your of. So on the left of the of and the right of the of is your P and the B. This is your P, that's your B. Now, some of you did this, but then you flipped the numbers. You did that part properly, and you had this as your A, but then you flipped the proportion. You can't do that. That's why I rewrite the proportion every single time. That way I make sure I fill it in properly. So that's 180 over 600 equals P over 100. Okay? Now you cross multiply. That gives me 600 times P is equal to 180 times 100. And that gives me 600P equals 18,000. So I divide by 600, that cancels, leaving me P is equal to 180 divided by 6, which P is equal to 30. Hey, college, 7th grade. What? 180 times 100. You're just bringing these two zeros down. Then you go 1 times 0, which is 0. 1 times 8, which is 8. 1 times 1, which is 1. 18,000 is where I got that right there. All right, now, I'm going to stop there for the time being and give you time in class to work on it so I can answer questions. Your homework is this, 9.2, 2 through 24. Okay, like I said, I want you to go ahead and start on it. You're going to work individually. That way I can come around and answer questions if you have any questions or anything.